Hi, I'm Phil Dustan again, and this is going to be a very short talk on what we think of as fill and build construction. So normally in places like the Lowcountry in Charleston, South Carolina, and Johns Island, we'll have a piece of land and we'll have a forest. And when in lower lying areas, this forest can actually be sort of a sponge forest that we call it. And it will have lots of little dwarf palmettos in it. You can notice these, you can see these very nicely with lots of often tupelo or gum trees or something like that. And the first thing a developer does when they build what's called a planned unit development, or PUD, okay, so think in terms of a PUD, planned unit development, is they eliminate the trees. They cut out all the trees, and then, because trees have roots, they'll go in and they will muck out all of the roots, and they will take the soil down some level. So they will essentially dig out the soil. And then they will fill this soil. They'll often dig a retention pond nearby, or they'll bring it in with a dump truck, and they will fill this area higher and then construct slab-on-grade houses close together and have nice green sod lawns. Now there are a couple things that make no sense with respect to this ecologically. Number one, when we fill this area with this high clay content sand, we've effectively made a dam. So any surface water that's going to hit here, come off these houses, is going to run off. So this impervious surface will shed more water. A parking lot, which is 100% impervious, will shed about 27,000 gallons of water for every inch of rain. A forest of the same size, a 1-acre forest, would shed about 500 gallons per inch of rain. So these particular kinds of developments are much closer to parking lots than they are to forests. So they shed large amounts of water, and that causes what we think of as urban flooding. The other, or development flooding, I guess. So if somebody were to be living next door on that old ground with maybe a tree, a small house here, the water runs down to here and floods this house out. And we see a lot of that in Charleston. We see a large number of developments, and then the houses on either side flood out. The other thing that happens is very often there is subsurface water flow. So the water may be flowing through the land down to the river, and now all of a sudden it hits a dam. And so that water builds up here. And again, if somebody is living here and has lived there for a long time, not only will water run off, but this water that gets trapped will flood their house. It's another kind of urban flooding or development flooding. So this whole idea of fill and build is a very inexpensive way for the builders to make large numbers of houses in small areas, but it is destructive to the land, and it is destructive to a lot of the neighbors that live around in that area. So that's called fill and build. Another thing that happens is, because this land has been filled and hasn't settled for a long time, very often the foundations here are made of relatively thin concrete, a slab foundation. They will crack over time, and then moisture will wick in through the bottom of the houses, and the houses have problems with mold. So we have three different problems here. We have urban flooding that pushes water into other areas or pushes more water into the river, and that water is basically toxic for the river. It dams water, it stops the subsurface water flow, and can actually damage then people that are upstream from that development. And the houses will very often show construction defects down the line. So really what we need to do is ban fill and build. We need to ban this process, okay? No fill and build, and go back to building in a more traditional way, and go back to building on the land in a way that doesn't destroy what's called the water capacity of the land. Thanks.